I want to welcome you to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on to share your insight, and we're very excited to hear from you and have you introduce yourself. I want to start this off by you giving into a little bit of your background, and
Mhm.
I actually have to make an announcement really quick, just for everybody listening on the podcast. We are soon switching to Riverside, and we're not going to be using Google Meet anymore. So we actually be able to live stream through YouTube and Twitter and X Spaces and stuff using a new platform. So for everybody who's been loyal and listening, thank you. But we will be soon upgrading all these systems. So it should actually be a more free-flowing podcast episode for the user. So I just wanted to share that really quick. But feel free to introduce yourself and share with us how you got involved into the space.
Hi, my name is Hakan, and I have been always a tech enthusiast. Even when I was about 8 years old, is when I started using my first computer. I guess it's part of advantages of being a millennial. If you were lucky enough, you get to use the computers and all the technology early enough. So later on, although I became an English teacher, always have been involved with crypto and the technology behind it. So I have mined actually my first Bitcoins back in 2011 or 12 on a laptop because the difficulty wasn't that hard yet. So you could actually pull it off mining it on a laptop. But of course, then my hard disk crashed and stuff. I was like, it's just worth a couple dollars. It's not a big deal, and just didn't even worry about it. Now, looking back, I mean, I would have probably sold when it got to 20,000, but I wouldn't have made it this far. But
Oh yeah.
it's always interesting to think like what could have been, or are those hash codes just lying somewhere in a hard drive? But anyway, then I have had the pleasure and the opportunity to work with such amazing workplaces such as Binance and Kraken, and been able to witness and experience what is going on in the world of crypto firsthand. I've been able to kind of figuratively hold the pulse of the crypto world, and it's just given me a big insight, and it's actually inspired me, like how fragile it can be and how important it is to be really alert at all times.
Yeah, so you were in the crypto space when crypto was pretty much just beginning in regards to like Bitcoin and trading it and stuff like that. And it's so true. Like even if you did have that hardware now, that hard drive now, and you had that like original purchase now, would you have held it for the long term, Especially because like in 2022, we had a dip in crypto for Bitcoin and all the major currencies. Like Bitcoin was only at like 20,000. So it's hard to say where you would have been at this point with that, but I think that that's amazing, and teaching in school to, still being involved in the crypto space is really interesting. And specifically, you talked about crypto mining. When we originally met too, we were talking over what we'd be talking about in this podcast episode. And just to recap, like for the user, we come out here once a week and have credible people on the podcast to teach you things that a lot of society might not understand in crypto. And one of those huge topics is Bitcoin mining. So to hear here, and we're going to have you explain and go into it, but like to hear that you were mining on your laptop is crazy, considering like the Bitcoin mining plants now and the farming plants and stuff like that, and just like how much energy usage it is. I think a lot of people get confused on how proof of work consensus mechanism works. And I will have a definition up on the screen for proof of work. And obviously, we're going to explain it. But proof of work is the consensus mechanism in which we confirm transactions and stay decentralized on Bitcoin, also known as Bitcoin mining. So I'm going to let Hakan go ahead and explain Bitcoin mining a little bit more in depth to people so they actually truly understand what's going on the blockchain.
Thank you. Actually, just to continue with what you said, proof of work was the first concept that came with Bitcoin, but there have been other ones, proof of stake and many others. But in its core, what does it mean? What does it mean to mine Bitcoin? People usually imagine people going into caves and mining like rocks, but it's actually a math problem, a math race, let's say. The reason I was able to mine it on my laptop back in the day will make more sense. Why? Because what it does while mining Bitcoins is your computer is trying to solve math problems. Let's say, to put it very simply, find a random number. Your computer is trying to guess and guess and guess and find a random number. Whoever finds the random number first has mined the block of Bitcoin. So they get the reward of 1 Bitcoin. The race was not that big back then, so people could mine on their laptop. If you get, let's say, lucky, you're the one who mined the Bitcoin, who found the random number, would get big rewards. But then people started using stronger computers to find a number. They said, I'll find the number first. And the harder people worked, the harder it became to find a number. So there are, of course, other concepts such as mining in a pool where 50 people put their powers together, and when one of them, let's say, finds the random number, they all share the pool. Even big centralized exchanges such as Binance have supplied people with pools. They said, okay, come join our pool. So in its most simplistic and basic working structure, you are trying to find a number. So you can see that with time, people have rented or bought big lands to put on a lot of GPUs there to be doing this mining process because they want to be the strongest. So, but that brings us to what is a blockchain? How does it all work? And why do people, like, how do people make the Bitcoins? And who is to say you're the one who found the Bitcoin block or somebody else did? So when you look at the blockchain, what I love about its technology is that it's where you enter a society in some way, that where the actions that are done is known by everybody. So you have a lot of witnesses. Let's say I sent you 1 Bitcoin. Everybody around us will take note of that. So nobody is to come to say, hey, you know what? They didn't actually do that, because you have the proof of work that you can see, look it back, and you can see in the blockchain that, yes, this transaction did happen. So also, I've heard that in the podcast before, that somebody was saying you can just go and read the white paper. It's just about 8 pages. So in the white paper, it's also established that in order to attack the blockchain, you would have to have at least 51% of the core power of the chain. And since there are millions of people right now on the blockchain doing Bitcoin mining and confirming transactions, that's becoming harder and harder to overcome the 51% and do any malicious activity. So that's the beauty of it. That's where you don't need banks anymore to confirm transactions. That's where you are more relying on, let's say, society or the people who are mining Bitcoin. It is also the backbone of the blockchain, because if people weren't mining Bitcoin, they weren't confirming transactions, people could have, or some malicious actors, let's say, could have done some terrible things with the money. But blockchain is always like intertwined with money and Bitcoin, but actually it doesn't have to be. There are so many other use cases for blockchain. For example, one use case that I had seen in the earliest days was an alternative to YouTube, where a YouTube-like website, the videos are hosted on the blockchain. And it has such immense power, actually, when you use it, because it has a lot of computing power distributed to all these people. So it's just crazy. And we can't talk about Bitcoin and blockchain without talking about like how it's limited, because there will ever be 21 million Bitcoin. And when people think about it, they might get confused. You might think like, I have to have 1 Bitcoin or 2. No, you can have a fraction of it. You can have a 1/8 million, or however much you want. You can have a fraction of it. So it's actually accessible to everyone, and that's what makes it really important, because today owning $100 worth of Bitcoin, in 50 years, it might be a lot more. It might be something you leave to your children in your will.
I want to comment on a few things that you said, because you're
Yeah.
saying a ton of good things. So, first thing that I think is really important to recap on is that so many people don't understand what the use case of blockchain is. Like, and separating crypto and blockchain, like they complement each other and they're like cohesive with each other, but blockchain can also thrive on its own. So I actually was at, so my partner's like huge into camping, and we went on this like camping trip in Maine yesterday. Totally not my thing, but we went. And I was talking to the farmer there who owns the farm, and he was like, "What are you passionate about? What like makes you tick?" And I was like, "Well, I love crypto, blockchain, like fintech, all this stuff." He was like, "I don't understand what any of this means." And I try to explain to them that blockchain's usage and purpose mainly is for transparency and more power to the people. So more control with you and I managing our finances and sending over money to each other without needing, and I talk about this all the time on the podcast, but without needing like PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, or the bank, for example, to be verifying transactions. So really, like, we're taking out the middleman and making a direct platform for us to be managing money. And like you said, on the blockchain, nothing can be reversed, nothing can be duplicated. It's supposed to help with counterfeit money too. You know how, like, I used to work at the bank, you would go into the bank and like you have to check if the money's real. Like, the blockchain tries to diminish all these things. So it demands complete transparency within our financial system, more power to the people. And you were right what you said about obviously consensus mechanisms. There are many different ways that different blockchains verify transactions and keep the platform decentralized. So we do not need the banks or Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, all these companies to be regulating and monitoring us pretty much. So, and you're right again that it goes so much deeper than just crypto. I know like people have been talking about voting systems and implementing DApp voting systems that would demand transparency, because obviously we have all these debates through elections about if they're transparent, if votes are transparent, all this different stuff. So like blockchain technology is literally like a payment processing system at its core, trying to diminish needing any third party involvement to run and keep it stable. So like that has to be explained, because so many people are just like, they don't get it. But basically, we both explained it great, but it's just to demand transparency in the space and overturn the financial system that we currently have, with the corruption in the government and government spending, which we just saw unfold before our eyes a couple months ago. And so to get off my spiel, go ahead and talk a little bit more about Bitcoin mining. So we understand what blockchain is now. So what is the method to confirm transactions on the blockchain?
On the blockchain, while the Bitcoin is being mined, actually the blocks of Bitcoin are being mined. When a blockchain, when a block of Bitcoin is mined, it gets ingrained with information, timestamp, the hash data, who mined it, what happened. And nowadays people are coming with a lot more. Some people are adding graffiti to the blocks of blockchain with different technologies. But so when this information gets out, it gets distributed to basically every computer on the network. That way, it has the records of, like, it has the history of Bitcoin since it was born. And that way, it's always a consensus and people can't just change the truth. So, but that brings us, I believe, to another important topic. Like how we said, we don't need banks. But nowadays, even in the world of crypto, we are dealing with a lot of bank-like entities, such as big exchanges. Now, centralized or decentralized? That is the big question for me, because you go and you say, you know what, I want to try this Bitcoin thing. What can I do? You go to one of the big ones, Crypto.com or Kraken or Binance, and you go just try to buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. And then you just leave it there. It is on the blockchain, but it is in the wallet of these exchanges or these entities. So in a sense, you either trust them and leave it there, or some exchanges have been hacked in the past. Some exchanges had malicious actors, and people have lost money. So what is the difference between centralized and decentralized exchange? In a centralized exchange, like you also said, there is a bank-like entity, and they can recover your funds if you have mistakenly sent it somewhere else. I've seen this a lot in my career, where people come, and say, you know what, I entered a few digits wrong and now my money is gone. It was worth everything to me. It was all my savings. I am lost. What can I do? The advantage of using centralized exchanges is, in some cases, it is possible to recover these funds. At the same time, you go through a lot of KYC processes, such as show us your ID, give me a selfie, or open your mouth and create a video or something, because they need to verify that it's you. So they share this information with the governments. This is the side of the centralized exchanges. But on the decentralized side, everything is more like its core. You trust the network. You trust the people who are on the network. And the consensus makes sure that they record how much money, how much Bitcoin, how much Ethereum or any coin you have on your wallet. But when you send it to a mistaken address, you are basically
You're
screwed.
cooked.
Yeah, you are cooked. You don't really have a way to get it back. So, but at the same time, you don't usually go through a lot of KYC processes. So, to each their own, I guess.
So
Yeah.
what would your recommendation be? Obviously the podcast is not financial advice, but is your a recommendation to go on a centralized exchange, or do you think like they shouldn't use Coinbase, for example?
I think it all depends on what kind of outcome you expect and how many guardrails you want to have. Because it can be very advantageous if you use a centralized exchange like Coinbase or any other big ones. And it gives you a lot of comfort, it gives you a lot of cushion, to have your money there. However, if you want to truly live what decentralized Bitcoin is meant to be, and you're like, yep, I'm an expert, I don't care, I won't lose my money, I'll be careful, I'll double check everything 5 times and then still be careful. Because what I want to also talk about, there are like some phishing and
Yeah.
scams, and it's crazy the way it works. So if you're sure that you will not be messed with, then you can use decentralized exchanges. I don't think there's a big harm in it using them, as long as you're very, very careful. Because there have been instances where, when you want to transfer Bitcoin from one address to the other, what do you usually do? You go to the destination address, you copy the address, you paste it into the one where you want to send the money from. However, scams and malware has become so good these days. You do this, you copy it from one place, you paste it to another place, but in transition, it has changed. The address you paste is not the address you copied. So you think I'm sending my money to the correct place, but it goes to someone else.
So, and this is like new to me, this concept. So you're saying that when you go to copy and paste somebody's like public key, for example, to send money, that in the time frame of copying and pasting it and then pasting it into the platform, you're saying that it can get distorted or changed.
Yes, it definitely can. We have seen instances of this. It can even be so that it's still showing you visually that it is the same address, but in the background, it can be a malicious address. They do this by intercepting your clipboard on your computer. They change it up, but you don't see it. It can be in other malicious software you unknowingly downloaded to your computer, and it can just have this effect. It can just change the address that you copied from somewhere.
So let me recap with you a couple other things that we've talked about too, just to like end on that note and move towards scams, because I really want us to talk more about scams and stuff too. To close out Bitcoin mining, because I think we should close that out. Basically, with Bitcoin mining and what you said is that the way in which we reach consensus through Bitcoin mining is that a bunch of people, and I'm just recapping what you said for clarity for people, a bunch of people are essentially trying to find a missing string of numbers, mainly called the hash. So usually they're looking for a hash that matches that block based off the data and the information that's given through that block. So people can pull together and they can try to find that missing hash together. Once they find that missing hash, that's confirming that that block's transactions are legit, they did happen, and it can get sent out into the blockchain. So, and usually a block can be formed with like one transaction or multiple transactions. It depends which blockchain you're on. But so that's basically the community of Bitcoin miners are what are keeping the platform always reaching consensus, always being in balance, just like working at the bank and making sure that your drawer is in balance every single night. The software, the blockchain itself is programmed to be able to do that, while the community of users and the Bitcoin miners and everybody that's using the blockchain is helping it reach consensus. So there's not one huge government authority or corporation that's keeping things in consensus. It's the users in the environment and the community itself. So more power to the people, more transparency. But like we're going to talk about, there are so many scams and fraud and phishing, and like, how can you stay safe? Personally, I trade on Coinbase, and I say trade lightly, but really I hold my crypto for the long run. I've had guest speakers that have come on that have said that you shouldn't be on a centralized exchange. You should. So I like to ask and get everybody's opinion. But personally, I have just been like, this is such an off-topic thing, but we're on the show. I have so much trauma from like Microsoft and even TikTok, because there's not a actual human behind the company for customer support. So personally, sometimes I would prefer a centralized exchange and something like Coinbase, because at the end of the day, I know that Coinbase is a legit company. It's been around for a while, you know, like they were just at the White House talking to Trump. So like, I know that if anything were to happen, my chances of retrieving my money could be a lot higher. And I would say if you want to get not on a centralized exchange, you want to get on a decentralized exchange, then, you know, maybe that's for somebody that's a little more experienced into crypto, that like understands private key, you know, public key, you know, cold wallet, hard, like all these different concepts. I would get familiar with those first and know what data you need to save before you go ahead and start trading. But so do you have anything else you want to say about the scams and the fraud that happen in the space?
Yes, absolutely. It can be from an email you receive with a fake exchange or any other kind of phishing email, or like I said, it can be like an address you copy from one place to another and it changes midway. Or another one I really would like to talk about is sometimes without even knowing, because without even knowing, you can be applying to a job and this job advert might be asking you for your personal information, such as your ID document or your SSN and stuff, but then use that to create a crypto account in your name and do all sorts of stuff. We have seen people trying to launder money or scam people and put all the money in one account that's opened in someone else's name. We got to be very careful these days. And one thing I would definitely recommend people do is there's a setting in your Google account that allows you to enter some of your information, like your first name, last name, your phone number, or any information you want. And Google will periodically check for this information on the dark web. And if it finds a match, it will email you and tell you, we have found a match for this information in the dark web. So you might want to change your password, or you might want to be careful using this information in another place. Because in the past, we have seen people steal someone's identity, could be their mother, could be someone else they don't know, but however, end up with someone else's identity and even try to dress up and put makeup on to look like this person on the ID and pass verification on these big crypto exchanges. So,
I thought you did have a story about that. Did we talk about that before?
yes, I have seen a male in their mid 20s put on a headscarf, put on makeup, and try to look like the person on the ID card, which was a female in their 30s or 40s. So this person tried to look like this person to pass KYC, which is know your customer, this process that the big exchanges need to go through in order, the centralized exchanges need to go through to be, I guess, legally binded.
Verified, yes.
Verified, yes. They will try all sorts of things to have an account with a fake ID. I have seen people use Photoshop on people's portrait images and their ID cards to distort their eyes a little bit, just enough to make it look like it's someone else so they can pass the KYC.
And not to interrupt you, but so in the beginning of this podcast episode, you said you were ex Binance, ex Kraken. So in your time there, we had talked about this before, but I completely forget. So I apologize. But what were you in like identity confirmation there, or how did you hear this story? Like, is this just like something you heard through somebody else, or is this like your personal experience?
There have been cases that I have just heard even on the internet, but there have been cases that I have firsthand experienced as well. I have been a part of the customer front. I have been a part of the identity verification part. So I have experienced different kinds of fraud looking documents and people. So it is quite insane the extents the people will go to have a fake account. So, and these places, these exchanges have incredible sets of security features for these kinds of frauds. They do catch them pretty early on. It usually doesn't get through.
Good. That was my next question. I was gonna say, what ended up happening here? Like, because is a human confirming, the know your customer? Like, is if you send in a picture, like if I send in a picture of myself and my photo ID, is a human behind the screen confirming that, or is it AI? So.
I mean, my general experience is that in a lot of the crypto exchange companies, there is usually some sort of AI at the front. And the ones that the AI misses or is not very sure about says, I'm not quite sure about this one. It might be helpful if a human checked this. So it goes to a human and the human calls the final shot. That's usually how it is. But yes, usually it doesn't get past the human.
Okay, good. Because like my whole concern with the AI movement and stuff, and I know we didn't really plan to talk about this, but now I feel like it's important to talk about. I feel like the whole AI movement is great, but down to a certain extent. There's a lot of companies now where their customer service is literally an AI bot. So like if I got locked out of my TikTok account and then like I lost my phone, like for example, if you wanted to get back onto TikTok, you need to know the sign up month, the sign up year, like there's and if that information is not correct, that AI bot will not push you further along the line to receive help. So it's like I think that's important to mention because in today's times, it's so crucial to not only just know your password, but have all the information at hand. Like it's no longer good enough to just be like, oh, I forgot my password. I gotta call somebody and like it's like in most cases now, there's nobody to call. So you have like as much as I'm like, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but like as much as I'm for blockchain, crypto, fintech, AI, all these cool innovations, it's like, do you think that that's a downfall in our customer service if it's just an AI bot every single time? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I have seen in every part of technology, from companies like Microsoft to Amazon to also including the crypto companies, they are moving more and more towards using AI for their customer support. They have Microsoft and Amazon and their likes have announced many people being laid off because AI is simply taking the customer support's place. I completely agree with you. Sometimes I, as a customer, I go try to fix an issue with the customer support of a company, but it's always gives me a set of issues. You have to choose one of them usually, and then if that doesn't really resolve your issue, some of them let you still talk to a human, some of them don't. I believe this can be a downfall because people usually love to generalize. They say, oh, you know what, AI will take care of it. I believe people who are in charge of making the decision if AI should be their chatbot should also experience their own website as a customer. I believe that's very important because I have seen in the past in companies I have worked at, people who design things are usually not the ones that use them. And that way, it just misses features. It's lacking the features that will help the person who's using it. So I believe it's a very important thing to make sure you do your QA very carefully and you experience it yourself as well. So to sum up, in my belief, it has its downsides. But all in all, it could be good in the long run when some issues are ironed out. I believe it will be much better. Right now, we're still in the infancy of AI, I believe.
I agree. I agree with that. I think in time it can get better. I think any huge company or institution that you're involved with, but also is involving money, you need to speak to a human. I'll go through AI first, but if it's not working, I need to speak to a human being. Like, for example, I got locked out of my TikTok account and I had put so much money into like promotions on TikTok and like, I was receiving money from the creator fund there. And it's just like, if people's livelihood is on your platform, then absolutely they should be able to talk to an actual representative to solve those problems. So like, I think that's worth addressing too, because as we move towards AI, it's like, what are the benefits and what are the cons? And for anybody that is in their middle ages looking to start like, getting on Coinbase, for example, like, you have to understand the company that you're getting involved with and know what information you need to have. Okay, they don't have a customer representative, so I need to make sure that I have my password recovery and all this stuff that usually flies over people's heads. So I want to switch gears. I know in your outline we were going to talk about crypto like internationally because you are from Turkey, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So I do want you to talk about crypto internationally. We've had people from Poland, like I've had somebody from Poland on the show. I've had people from a little bit all over the place on the show, but I want to hear, what do you think about crypto internationally? How is it different from the US?
Internationally, crypto can be seen as something totally different in different countries, depending on the culture and the legalities of it. For example, in the US, people usually see it as part of an investment. They are like, oh, I bought, let's say, $5,000 worth of Bitcoin back in 2017. Now it's claimed up to this place. So people see it as an investment. But in other countries like Turkey, let's say, Argentina or Venezuela, where people's money is losing value day by day, they might see, for example, even a stable coin as a safe harbor. They might see like, okay, this will at least protect the value of my money. So in America, where you could be having these discussions, oh, centralized or decentralized exchange, or do we need a bank or should we go full crypto and blockchain? In those countries, for example, in Nigeria, people use it as the only way they can receive international payments, as far as I know, or to send each other money without the big fees of the banks internationally. So it just changes its meaning so much by where you live. I believe a lot of countries are going to move into having these discussions and seeing it as an investment in the end, especially if Bitcoin's value, let's say, reaches a number like $1 million a Bitcoin. It has to change. However, in a lot of these countries where like I said, the money loses value daily. You know, people have different economical crises, so it will still be like a way to continue to live their daily life, I believe. So it just depends on where you are. In America, it can be like a hype coin, but in those other countries, it can be part of life that's so important to you because you need to protect your money, protect your investments.
100%. And I thought you had mentioned last time that we spoke that like Turkey is like gun ho for crypto.
Yes, yes, it is actually. People just use their phones, connect to an exchange, and then just buy and sell on the go while they're walking on the street or they're in the public transportation. One day, years ago, one day I went to the hospital to get something checked, and it was this period where Elon Musk was talking about Doge and pumping it up so much, and it was going to immense prices. So I believe also people were investing their whole life savings into Doge to for it to go to $1. Anyway, I went to the hospital and I just heard some people talking to each other. I overheard them. There was a nurse saying, "Oh, you know this thing called Doge?" That's what she called it. She said, yeah, a few days ago, I bought it, and last night I sold it. Now I have 8 times more of my money, so I'm getting my kitchen renovated. I'm like, okay, if if it helped you that much, I'm glad you're not on the end where you got burned. You know, you could have lost a lot as
100%.
well.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it worked for you. You know, this is no financial advice, but I'm glad it worked for you. And that made me just think like how mainstream it can get real quick because money drives a lot of people. You know, it's like getting your kitchen renovated after 20 years. Can you imagine? You
Oh
never had
yeah.
money or financial ability, but now all of a sudden this magical thing just helped you and you got a whole new kitchen. I'm sure she'll never forget that.
Oh
So
yeah. But also like to talk about how incredibly lucky she was, and also like a kitchen renovation depending like could be like tens of thousands. It could be 30 grand like
yeah,
easily. So for her to win, well, that's another thing that we could talk about. And I know we have so much to talk about, but like the psychology of trading too, it's like if somebody like that wins big on a lucky go, you know, how are they going to react moving forward from that too? So, you know, the psychology of crypto too is, you know, there's been so much hope and optimism around crypto, you know, getting you rich and having opportunity. And like, so a lot of people get lost in that too. And especially people like that who have a lucky go in crypto and then they're like, this is amazing. And you're so right. It can't, like, people can hear that and how that registers after could be good or bad. So I just like I think that story is like really funny to me because it just goes to show that there have been a lot of people who have been lucky at this in the beginning stages, but didn't actually know like what they're talking about. Like she couldn't even pronounce the coin correctly. So it's like it that's why we're here. We're trying to spread true education. We're trying not to get people lost into the get rich quick schemes and the scams and the phishing and all this stuff. What you said about Google though is a really good tip. I have actually never known that. So yeah, if you guys are looking to like secure your account, absolutely you should check that feature on Google and see like if your information is being spread somewhere else, especially with, you know, Apple Pay and all your stuff being on your phone now. It's definitely a good resource to use. So do you have any closing thoughts in regards to maybe some like your experience at Binance? I know there partially there might not be things you can talk about, but like anything else that you feel like is important for the user to hear from you?
yes, I actually wanted to talk about like because you said hot wallet, cold wallet. I wanted to go into that a little bit because when you hear hot wallet, cold wallet, you're like, what is that? I mean, my wallet is always hot when I don't have money, I guess, you know, because it's on fire. So I wanted to explain simply a little bit. Hot wallet is a wallet that is connected to the internet, where you can send and receive money immediately, and that also means being connected to the internet means people on the internet might be able to reach it as well. That's
Right.
why we see a lot of people who have computers specifically for their investments that are not connected to the internet. Then
Mhm.
you might ask, okay, how does the Bitcoin get into the computer then if there is no internet? That's where the cold wallets come in. There is this device called the ledger that is simply like a USB flash drive. It's very small, very simple device, has a little screen on it. You connect it to your computer, you transfer your money into the Bitcoin or another coin address into that. Then as soon as you take it out of the computer, it's a cold wallet because it's not connected to the internet anymore. So you can take it to Madagascar with you and you'll still have your money with you in the cloud. How does that secure your money, you might ask? There is a security feature on it, which is about to change, I believe. Soon it's going to have more like Touch ID and Face ID capabilities, I believe. But right now, there is a seed phrase that's 24 words, 24 random words in a sequence that makes up your backup password, let's say. So you get this password when you first set the device up. And if you were ever to lose it, if you enter these 24 words in the correct sequence, you can get back your money on a new ledger device. So people have, for example, written those seed phrases in papers and spread them across the world in 5 different places. So they're like, if I'm in one of the countries and I lose my ledger, I can still get that paper and get my money back. So the advantages of a cold wallet is you can just take it anywhere. People can't hack it when you're not connected to the internet, and it's yours. But also, like we said, with the centralized and decentralized exchanges, the responsibility is on you. If while trying to get some of your money out of your cold wallet into a hot wallet, you enter the address wrong or you have another issue, you'll be on your own. So it is a very safe and secure way to keep your money. I just wanted to touch upon that and help people understand what it could be like. So I have my own, and I believe it's a very important feature that was developed. So just
great point to clarify. And I think it's funny, like, people, to try to help people understand this, is like basically your crypto is going to be on a little USB like drive now that is technically considered your wallet. So it's like you're not going to have like your traditional wallet where you store all your money. You're now going to have this hard drive that is a cloud that stores your crypto with encryption and obviously like data, security measures and stuff like that. So, but you're right. If you do go in the direction of having a cold wallet, you are 1,000% responsible for how that ends up. If you lose it, for example, you don't have the seed phrase, the recovery phrase, you're in trouble. But also there are risks for being on Coinbase and using like a Coinbase wallet, for example. So that was a great point to touch upon. I think it's worthy to clarify that. And you have so much experience, and we'll make sure to have all your information down below at the end of the podcast description. So if anybody just has a question and they want to get in touch with you, maybe even about your experience at Binance or Kraken, and like anybody's trying to be in the know, absolutely, we'll make sure that all your information is down below. And I guess before we let you go, are there anything else or any last things that you would like to say for the user? Any like final words of wisdom to help them?
Just say, every time you receive an email or a message or something that's about money or your any personal information, just be vigilant. Just always double check. Don't click on any links. You can even just take a screenshot of it and ask ChatGPT, does this sound legit? Just be very vigilant, because nowadays it's really easy to get scammed. I hear a lot of stories, people losing their life savings, losing their house, losing their car, a lot of that. So it's very important to stay vigilant. And if it sounds, this is going to be a cliche, but if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is.
Yes. And also, like, just to close this episode out, if you're looking for help, there are a ton of resources on this podcast. If you're unsure about something, like we've now talked to somebody that has been somewhat involved in identity security on like for different companies. So definitely, like, if you're questioning anything, there's a plethora of resources here. Reach out to people and ask. It doesn't hurt to make sure that you're connected to safe people in the space that can actually guide you correctly. So I think that's also a good point to mention. But I want to say thank you so much, Hakan, for coming on to the podcast. So grateful to have had you on with all your insight. And we will see everybody next Monday for Cryptic Humility, and stay tuned for all the software updates that hopefully will make watching the podcast much more enjoyable. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much for having me.